a portion, nice little hour, chunk of time discussing kind of what it means to have a Jewish day. And today's discussion is a Jewish home. Now, I found the collection of titles kind of enmeshed together really fascinating and maybe even a little perplexing for some as to, okay, I get, Manya, how the Mezuza is related to my Jewish home. And yeah, okay, very cool. I can even get how I think I can get how Jewish books are maybe connected to a Jewish home. Actually, maybe more libraries. So where does that come in? And Jewish friends, what does that have to do with my Jewish home? So we're going to unpack these layers, and hopefully by the end we'll have a little bit more clarity, because hopefully, as we said, always practical, and hopefully really something that can give us some really good takeaways. So when it comes to a home, and I'm going to put myself on the spot here, you guys get to see this view of my home weekly. Okay. If you had to analyze me, what would you say? What is my home telling about me? Anyone unmute yourself, jump in. Patricia, go ahead.
It's well decorated.
Well decorated. Okay. What else?
It's very neat.
Neat. Okay. I'm not showing you the other end of the camera, but we could talk about that. I actually try to keep it. It is neat. So neat is very important for my my zen, my sanity, my everything. So elegant. Okay. What else? What else would you say?
Anyone have a lot of nature?
Nature. Yes. I love green and plants, and I have plants almost in every room of the house. I try to find ones that you can't kill because life is busy. I found ones that need the least help, like succulents need very little water, and I found one that don't need a lot of sun. The question, Rivka, is what if you look at my house behind me? What would you? The view of my house. What would you say it says about me? Right. That was the question. So, okay, I love greenery. And I actually, one of the most challenging things from moving from the Northeast in New Jersey to Texas flat was nature was really one of the only things I absolutely missed. So as far as cleanliness, that's a little tricky. This closet's not so clean. It's full of a lot of stuff. You can't even see. So we're good at making it look clean. But yeah, clean is important. Calm is also really important. And as a matter of fact, we bought this house a year and a half ago. And one of the things that was the most difficult things to establish with the designer that I worked with for the home, I knew what I was looking for: clean but warm, a little bit modern, but not too sharp and cold. One of the things I was really working on half the time in the beginning was spent figuring out what my style is. What story do I want my house to tell? What vibe do I want people to have when they walk into my home? What's the energy? And the truth is, one of the reasons I teach from home, and one of the reasons I teach not from the Chabad house, I love the Chabad house, but the Chabad house is a lot more chaos. And if I need to be centered and focused, I need to be in a space that's not chaotic. So yes, that's absolutely one of the reasons why I go with that vibe. I like to have natural sunlight as much as possible, et cetera, et cetera. Because the space that we occupy actually tells a story about us, whether we're aware or not aware. And I want to tell you a brief story. Is that I started years ago, before I moved to campus, before I moved to A&M, I worked in a preschool for 8 years. I was very immersed in the field of early childhood, extremely, and I loved it. And I think I, learned so much about humans and life in the classroom of 2-year-olds, truly, because the world is amazing and life is amazing and they want to explore everything, and no is not even an option. So I learned a lot about myself and the world from them. When we went to build a building, one of the things we did for a preschool, we went around to a bunch of preschools. And I remember this large digest, one of the first minds who said that the environment is the third teacher. There's the materials in a classroom. You have puzzles, you have books, you have things. The teacher is a teacher, but the environment is a teacher. You ever watched a young child explore outdoors? You ever went out into the woods and you're just learning about sounds and smells and touch and taste in yourself? So the environment actually sets a tone and a vibe and is a teacher. So the question is, what does our environment say about us? What kind of environment do I want to set up? What kind of vibe do I want when someone walks into my space? If you ever walked into a frat house, aside from the fact that you probably need to plug your nose, unless it's Parents' Weekend and the pledges cleaned it out. I don't know where the quote is from. I'd have to find it. It was an Architectural Digest about building space, that the environment is the third teacher. You can Google it. It's pretty famous. It's just been 10 seconds since I've been in the preschool world. and building a building. And by 10 seconds, I probably mean about 18 years. So, I don't remember, but I do, that line stuck with me. Out of that entire digest, that line stuck with me. So the question is, what's environment? What's the vibe? And when you walk into a fraternity house, or you walk into, you can tell there's a bunch of single males living there, right? The trash is this. I mean, I'm not saying everyone needs to spend time in a fraternity house. That is not what I'm saying. But if you have ever walked in, there's a certain vibe compared to sorority homes where it's clean and neat. And there's someone who's working on organizing. The guys that don't have cleaning up, it's irrelevant. The laundry's there, the socks are there, there's a party there, there's a strobe light there from last month's theme party. That's the vibe. So everything tells a story. The question is, what story does our space tell? And our story doesn't start from the dining room, the living room, the entry, or the hallway. Our story actually starts from before we enter the home. And when we moved into this home, I was having some students come over to meet with me. And it was unbelievable because they went to find our address and it was dark and this street is a little cul-de-sac and you can't really see our house, and they couldn't see the numbers brightly. And they said, we couldn't find your house. And suddenly I get a text, we can't find your house, we're lost. And I'm like, go around the circle, you'll find it. And then they go, oh, all of a sudden I hear a knock at the door. And I say, what? How did you know? They said, we saw your mezuzah and we knew we were at a Jewish home. We knew there was no other person in this block with a home like that. And in fact, I just had neighbors. They just moved to the neighborhood in Texas. Now, Texas is super friendly. And they came to introduce themselves to the neighbors. So they made some homemade goodies with some candy cane and some ho-ho-ho wrapping paper. And they're bringing it from neighbor to neighbor to meet everybody. Like literally good old fashioned, maybe the 50s, won't you be my neighbor, knock at the door? It was that kind of vibe. And they probably were around in the 50s. They were a very cute old couple. And they walk in and they say, oh, well, whatever. And then they saw right away the menorah. And they said, oh, well, it's your holiday, isn't it? And then the other lady goes, so this is a little inappropriate. I said, no, it's very thoughtful and I appreciate it. And it's nice to meet you. And she said, so you celebrate Hanukkah? I said, well, we're actually Jewish. And she said, oh, I should have known you have that Jewish thing on the door. She didn't know it was a mezuzah. And then I informed her that she was in fact in a rabbi's house. And I thought her jaw was gonna, I had to pick it up for her. Like a rabbi, like a real live human rabbi's house. Like they've never met a rabbi before. They heard they exist, but there's a real one right here in this town on my block. And then she said, I'm glad our block is blessed. And I was like, well, it's blessed with people like you here, right? Because contrary to popular belief, the rabbi doesn't walk around sprinkling blessings on the block. But okay, if that's what they want to think about us, they'll be very nice to us on extra trash day or something. I don't know. Or when my kids make too much noise at, jumping in the pool at, I don't know what time at night. So hopefully we'll bank on that later. But what was the point? The point is, here was two extremes of students who knew that our home would have a mezuzah. And that was their way that they knew they were at our home. And someone who knew that we had that Jewish thing on the door. Right? And so what is it about a mezuzah? And on a technical level, we say the Shema. Shema is fundamental. We say, twice a day. Shema includes, you should bind it as a sign, put it on bind it in your arms as a sign between your eyes, totavot beinecha, and taftam al mezuzot beitecha. And you should write it on the doorpost. And the word mezuzah actually means doorpost of your home. So what is this doorpost and what are we writing and how are we putting it and how essential is it and what message does it send and what significance does it serve aside from helping my neighbors know who we are, right? And it turns out that obviously the mezuzah is a mitzvah and God commands in the Shema, which is pretty fundamental. 3,500 years we've been saying the Shema. It's listed twice in the Torah about putting this as a sign on your doorpost. What are we putting? What is it a sign of? Can I do it in my dorms? How do I do this? What about that gorgeous case I got in Israel? Is that the mezuzah she's talking about? So let's break it down literally. A mezuzah means doorpost. It's a scroll written by a scribe on parchment. It is not written on paper. It is written on parchment. My husband once went to hang up a mezuzah for someone, an older lady, and he says to her, oh, let's hang up the mezuzah. She says, yeah, it's beautiful. I got it from Israel. And my husband goes to hang it up and he realizes there is no cloth, no parchment inside, no scroll inside. And he said, well, what happened to the inside? Oh, she said, oh, the instructions, they were in Hebrew. I threw them out. She thought the mezuzah was that empty, beautiful case she got. It was the parchment inside that makes it a mezuzah, because on that parchment is a declaration that we are making God welcome. This space is your space. We acknowledge you. You are here. You are part of our lives. Not just when I go to the synagogue, not just when I'm my great aunt Seder. My dorm, my home, my apartment is a space where God is a part of and welcomed. That's the declaration we make. We remind ourselves of the mantra that we say when we look at that mezuzah, when we walk by and give it a little kiss. We're reminding ourselves of the mantra that we're declaring about the oneness of God, that God's involved in our life, about our obligation to connect with him, wherever we are, even on vacation, even during the pandemic, even when the synagogues are closed. In my home, in my kitchen, in my walk-in closet, everywhere, except the bathroom. Except the bathroom. It's okay. God knows we'll come out, we'll say the blessing, thanking God that we went to the bathroom and that our bodies work, but we wouldn't put God's name or the Shema, which is so holy, on a bathroom door. But all the other doors in my home are making a statement. And it's a powerful statement. Now, if you remember, I actually mentioned that there were different mitzvah campaigns that the Lubavitcher Rebbe, throughout his 40 years of leadership, really, really wanted the entire world to feel empowered and educated and have accessibility to these mitzvot that are fundamental. They've been fundamental for years. Okay, they went out of style. Mitzvahs don't go out of style. The Torah doesn't have an expiration date. Let's keep learning. And so the third one of the mitzvah campaigns that the Rebbe initiated was actually Mivtza Mezuza. And it was really, really in 1974. It was a very difficult situation. It was a tragedy of a terrorist attack, and children were murdered. And the Rebbe came out and was talking all about Mezuza. Then the news came out about the murder. And the Rebbe said, there's such a connection between protection and a mezuzah. Because if a mezuzah is saying God is in this space, you see, at the end of the day, a mezuzah, and this is a quote, a mezuzah assures long life for you and your children. Wow. That little thing hanging on my door brings that much blessing to my space. Whoa, that's important. That's an easy way to bring godliness into my life, a consciousness and awareness that even on my good days or my bad days, wherever I am in my home, that's a great way to do so. And even more so, not just protection. My husband, when he hangs a mezuzah on a student's door, he gives him a little thing that says mezuzah, security. Because it's not necessarily a security guard, but it has been described as that little soldier standing at the door, guarding that space. And yes, of course, you can ask a question towards the end. We'll do it again like we did at the last class. At the end of each section, we'll answer a few of the questions for it, okay? But really, it doesn't just protect the inhabitants of that space during that time. It even protects them when they're on the road. And what we have, and again, to quote the words of the Rebbe, the Mezuza offers protection. A mezuzah is a lifeguard, guards life. And the Rebbe used the analogy that a soldier would never go into battle without a helmet. A Jew shouldn't go into life without a mezuzah. That's powerful. That little scroll, wow. And so what's so fascinating is, as Chabadniks, we have gotten used to that if there's something that's not going right in our physical world, we are so keenly aware of the Kabbalistic principles that the physical and the spiritual are deeply enmeshed, deeply interconnected. And so if there's something that's not going right, I just had a phone call with someone who was in crisis with one of their children. And then one of the things I said to her is, does he have a mezuzah in his bedroom? Has that mezuzah been checked? Is it a kosher mezuzah? Some mezuzahs are beautiful cases. You buy them in a Judaica store, but inside there is no parchment. There may be a piece of paper or a photocopy. So you want to make sure you have a kosher mezuzah in your space. And obviously kosher, like we said, means fit. So it's not about eating. It's right. It's in good shape. And I want to tell you a personal story, and it's a creepy story. It may weird you out, but when I was younger, I was going through a door, and we had in Brooklyn these old, heavy, very metal doors. I don't even know if they're like legal now according to coding, but these heavy doors, and it slammed and it really crushed one of my feet, like broke my finger pretty badly. Okay, it happened, went to the doctor, got it fixed. A week later, on the same day in the same door, the same hand, my sister got the door slammed on her finger and also ended up in the hospital. And once you see a pattern, we're like, something's not right here. And we're Chabadniks. We know, check the mezuzah. And sure enough, we took the mezuzah down, and the word biyadcha, which means your hand, was scraped off and not working. Happened. I was about 10 or 11. Okay. So I still have a funny, one of my fingers is really, I can't show you, but it's the middle finger. It's not so polite. It's really funny shaped still. It recovered. I'm fine. Why am I, it's not magic, heebie-jeebie. It's if this function of this mezuzah is to remind us of godliness and protect those in the home, when there's something wrong with it, we got to fix it. We got to take a look at it. So ask yourself, why wouldn't I want that in my home, in my dorm room? And people say, oh, it's going to make a mark on my renter. Don't worry, you put a little tape. We do double back sticky tape. Anywhere you are, there's a Chabad rabbi, one phone call, they'll bring a mezuzah to your door. Happily, we have a mezuzah loan thing. We bring mezuzahs to people. There are so many powerful ways to bring this gift of mezuzah. But for thousands of years, Jews have been having Jewish pride, saying, I am Jewish and this is my mezuzah and I am proud. And another beautiful message of the mezuzah, if you notice the mezuzah, it's always kind of slanted. And really, it teaches us such a powerful message because really, there's a big debate in Jewish law. Open the Talmud about mezuzah. Some say it should be upright, some should be straight, some should be 3/4, some should be a quarter, up, down, right, left. And the compromise is slanted. Not one opinion, not the other, but a compromise. And I think it's a beautiful, powerful takeaway. That as we welcome Hashem into this home and into this space, as we bring godliness and we bring protection to those in the home and those on the way, we also need to remember to be open and compromise. And that's a powerful message. So ladies, l'chaim, get your mezuzah on. It's a thing. It's easy. There's for sure a local Chabad rabbi or rebbitzin who'll be happy to come by, swing by, pop a mezuzah on it. If you like your house, put a mezuzah on it. I'm definitely a fan. It's not going to be it's really, and you know what happens? People pass by and they're curious, and then you can teach them. You can talk about, oh, I'm going to combat anti-Semitism, and I'm going to speak up for the Jews, and I'm going to be proactive, and I'm going to go out there and go on social media with my social media keyboard warrior, and I'm going to tell everybody and share all the beautiful memes about Jewish pride. How about just put a mezuzah on your door? And then open a dialogue. Live as a strong, proud Jew. That's the best way to combat anti-Semitism. Start with your mezuzah. It's doable. So this is section mezuzah. We have 2 more to go. And I'm sure we have all the time in the world, so I'm not so worried at all. Anyone have any questions? I saw there were some questions. Unmute yourself, ask them, jump in.
What I was gonna say was,
Yeah.
when you were talking about not having like God's name like near a bathroom, which I knew that already, but then it kind of just like occurred to me. So like when I'm in the shower, that's like where I do like a lot of my deep thinking, and like I'll just stand there with like the water running on me, and a lot of the times that's also like where I'll kind of get like my thoughts straight and like kind of reflect on things, and then I'll start to talk to God and like think, is that bad?
So first of all, it's a really good question. And I'm going to answer it twofold. I would say, number one, we all know the shower is the best place for the best brainstorms. Songwriters write their songs in the bathroom. I do my list sometimes. It's like the best, like somehow almost like the rest of the world is slowed down so your brain can absorb more and you can be more present. So I'm not going to tell you not to clear your mind in the shower. I would definitely avoid saying God's name in the shower. If it's a conversation in here, I think it's probably a little different, but we would be very conscious and aware. As a matter of fact, one of my children, wanted to say Hashem's name. She was saying something about God, but she didn't want to say God's name. She was in the bathroom. So she's like, so I was thinking about the King of all kings, because she knew that that wasn't one of God's formal names. And they were like 6. So the King of all kings. And I was like, oh, okay, that's very funny, because they were just avoiding saying, we actually are careful with what we say in the bathroom. We wouldn't bring a sea door into the bathroom, right? It's a space that is not, where we're not covered. We're not. So thoughts, I think, are probably a little different, that you would probably want to stray from like having deep meditative prayer sessions in the bathroom. I would probably say the shower is not the best place for that. Clothing and stuff like that is like, we're a little more careful and aware of that. Hashem means the name. Hashem means the it's a prefix. Shem means name. We refer to God because there are many other names of Hashem that we don't say in vain. That's one of the commandments. We say Hashem. It's a title. It's, respectful, and it's avoiding saying the other names that are not casually chatted at. Okay. So Zara, I hope that was like clear enough for you.
It was, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
And I just realized personally, because this is a problem that we all struggle with, whatever we think about during the day comes up when what an amazing acknowledgement to God that you're saying, oops, can't think of you now. Like, I want to think about you when I'm dressed respectfully.
Yeah. Or I'm going to carve out space for thinking of you.
Right.
Yeah. Intentional space.
Like even sending the thought out is so godly. Like,
yeah.
It's the mitzvah to do that.
Yeah. That's a really powerful thought. And sometimes when we say no to something, we're saying yes to something higher, right? Like if I say no to talking to God in the shower, I'm saying yes to carving out time and space respectfully. So something to think about. Yeah, Dara.
So like, I'm assuming that a lot of us live with other people, like roommates or whatever. So is it enough to just have the mezuzah on your room compared to other places in your house normally?
That's a really great question. I would say to a student who's come to me, I'd say start with your room, but I have never once found a roommate, and maybe it's because we're Texas and there's very religious respect and stuff like that. But if you're living with someone who it bothers them that you have mezuzah on the door, you have other problems than the fact that they don't like your mezuzah. You have a problem with mutual respect.
Okay, so if I'm living with 7 other people, like I am,
put on the front door and on your bedroom door.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely the front door. And you tell them, guys, I got a good plan for bringing blessings to everyone. Our parties will be blessed. We'll all stay safe. They're going to thank you. You'll get great grades, 4.0 GPA. Okay, don't promise that. There's no guarantees. They actually have to study. Okay. But I think that in general, I heard this line from Jonathan Sachs, may his memory be for blessing, like really, 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 really powerful line that I heard years ago that really stuck with me. Non-Jews respect Jews who respect themselves. Like when you come across with self-respect and not mean and not pushy and not obnoxious and aggressive, but respect, like this would be really meaningful to me. This is so important to my faith. They'll respect you. People will respect you. And then it opens dialogue. Like, well, what is this thing about? And why is it important to you? And et cetera, et cetera. And we build bridges in communication and respect. And who knows where that leads to? It's never bad to build communication and respect. So what we're going to do, not because I don't want to continue on, but just because I'm conscious of that clock ticking away in the corner. I get the extra time back, right? No, I'm kidding. I know there is. You do. Always a schedule. Bais Chana tries to cram this much into this much, and miraculously it works. I don't know how. But it does work, right? Okay. So the next thing I kind of want to jump into is this idea of Bayit Malei Sfarim, a house full of books. Now, what's interesting is like at the end of the year, like, in 2020, I read 70, people posting on social media, I read 75 books and 3 self-help books. And it's like this whole competition of what books I read and how this year my resolution is to read more books, like books, reading, carving out time for reading. It's like one of these very interesting things. If you're not someone who's naturally someone who wants to read books, do you have them? How many of you have a stack of books on your night table? I do. How many of you have gotten through all of them? Yeah, exactly. Ish, right? We open, we dabble, we flip. Okay, you guys are more my style when it comes to these things, right? So point being that it's always important to surround yourself with books, and knowledge is power. And we've heard all of these lines, like we've heard it. It's not anything new to us at all. But what is it that again, is so fundamental to Judaism. So we've always been known as people of the book, but what does that mean? Scholarly, academic, brilliant. What does that mean? We like to read. We're just a bunch of bookworms. That our religion, our identity, our history, our heritage, the richness of what makes us who we are in 2021 is documented for generations. We have a long line of wisdom, beauty, depth, morality, philosophy that's ours, and it's yours, and it's a treasury. And yet, if I would discuss with you this concept of illiteracy, you maybe would say, oh, inner city Detroit, the public school system, oh, the illiteracy, goodness, in the Bronx, there's a struggle with the community and illiteracy. You would never say middle-class American Jews. And yet, statistically, 85% of young American Jews are Jewishly illiterate. That's a really high statistic. I can't tell you how many times I've heard students say, I don't know what Judaism believes. Heaven, hell, death, mourning. I don't know. Souls after, I don't know. So how did it happen that these people of the book became so disconnected from the book, from the source, from where we come from what we've been looking back at for thousands of years? And ultimately, we got to do better. And ultimately, we are doing better because 28 of you here showed up to learn. But what is it about having books? Because books tell a story. You see someone browsing one section of the bookstore, you stay away from them. They're browsing this section. Oh, I don't know what type of person that is. Someone has a stack of cookbooks. They're telling a message about themselves. Just as I was saying earlier that our home sends a message, this concept of having a home that's full of Jewish books. Every home, and even to the extent every bedroom, each of my children have their own vast Jewish libraries. Starts off with fundamentals, a Siddur, a book of Tehillim, Psalms, a Chumash, the Torah. That's what it starts off with. And it grows as they grow, as their literacy evolves, as they're more curious to connect to the text on their own level. Because without Torah and without the text of Torah, who are we? And so fascinating is there was an architect and a sociological architect who was discussing the Arc de Triomphe. And the Arc de Triomphe was the Romans built as they pillaged the second temple, the Jewish temple, and they took all the precious gold and silver and the Jews, and they marched them through Rome, part of their conquest, and they built an arch to really show their story of their success. And if you go back there, the sociologist commented, as he looks at it, this historian, he said, they are not there. The Romans are beautiful, old archaeological diggings. There's leftovers here, there's beautiful buildings there. Yet the Jews are still here. And he said, the secret is look at the arch. Look at what the Romans took. They took the gold and the silver, the menorah. They took the Jewish people, but they didn't take their Torah because their literacy was transmitted to the next generation. So you and I, when we have Torah books in our home, it's a vibe. We're setting an environment. We're saying that I may not pick up every single one of these books and learn them, but if I want to, if I'm ready to, and if I'm inspired to, I can do so. And what's amazing is what I have found is a very large percentage of our Chabad budget goes to our Jewish library. We have an extensive one on science, on women's issues, on Torah, on Mashiach, on faith, on interesting stories. My children have vast children's libraries. And if I could take you around on a selfie stick, I would take you to my living room where there's floor to ceiling bookcases on one wall and bookcases up the other wall full of books. Because this is how we create an environment. And I want to tell you, I had two children who struggled with literacy tremendously. And just the other day, one of them, who's now 11, we're sitting at dinner, and she says, I can't read, right? It's disrespectful to read at the table. And I said, of course it's disrespectful to you. We're eating as a family. So she's a wise one. She moves her chair away, puts the book here, and she's like this. And this was a kid who struggled. How is it that we went from a kid who's struggling to read to a kid who I have to make sure she doesn't have books in her backpack because you're going to pull them out during class? Through having an environment of literacy. And the types of book we choose affect us. If you're going to read romance novels, that's what's in your head. If you're going to read Torah books that infuse us of inspiration, well, that's what's going to give you fuel. And so just creating an environment with these books is absolutely tremendous. And really, if you remember the 10 mitzvah campaigns, this was one of them. Bayit Malei Sfarim, a home full of Jewish books. And what's so important is that even each and every one of us, you and I, even if we don't have a vast Jewish library, we have a limited budget, get yourself a Torah, get yourself a book of Psalms, get yourself a Siddur prayer book. And you never know when you're going to be ready to open it. Keep it on your shelves. And actually, that's the gift we give students. Not because we don't know that there are other gifts that maybe they'll enjoy more. Because I want to send a strong and powerful message to every Jewish student. You have a connection to Torah. And their library of vast English books is tremendous. Inspiration, there's no shortage. We can even maybe throw up some book suggestions in the chat, I'm not sure, but there's incredible ones that are really, really like meaningful and bite-sized. And if you're curious about women in the Torah, there's those books. If you're curious about science in the Torah, there's those books. There's no shortage. But having a home that's full of books, you never know when that inspiration will happen. I want to tell you a story. We had a boy, heart of gold, wonderful Jewish boy. And he, honestly, I hate to say, because I don't know if I should say this is being recorded, but his interaction with females was less than respectful. And for some reason it worked. It worked, superficially. And what actually happened was, he was once at the Chabad house, kind of stuck there for the day, whatever ended up happening. And he saw a book on the shelf. And the book was called, oh gosh, I can't believe I forgot the book because I've given away like 60 copies at least of it. Unprotected by Dr. Miriam Grossman. And she was a psychiatrist at UCLA. It's not quite the subject for tonight, but she was a psychiatrist at UCLA. And she wrote about how the current dating and sex scene is really destroying women more than men, actually, emotionally, psychologically, anxiety, eating disorders. It's a really good read. As a matter of fact, I've bought this book. I bought 3 cases. When a student takes it, I say, don't give it back to me, pass it on to the next girl that you care about. It's Jewish or non-Jewish. It's such a powerful read. And she brings science and case studies. But it's also so easy to read. Well, he picks up this book, or I may have even handed it to him because I'm that kind of person. I'd be like, hey, read this book. I think I may have done that. I'm not sure. And he reads this book and that's it. And suddenly he, picks up the book. He says, hey, do you mind if I take it? I say, yeah, take it, no problem. I thought nothing of it because he either read it, he didn't read it, he dabbled, whatever it is. Make a very long story short. 6 months later, he's dating the same girl. And everyone's like, yo, dude, you okay? Like, what's up? He's dating the same girl. And he doesn't end up marrying her, but he comes to me and he says to me, Manya, do you know what changed? I said, what? He said, when I read that book, I realized what I was doing. I didn't have awareness of what my behavior was causing. Well, this same young man had a little bit of a traumatic Jewish experience growing up. And he one day came to me with all his Jewish books. He said, I'm never going to need these. Take these for your kids. And I said, I don't want them. He said, I'm never going to need them. I said, one day you will establish a strong, beautiful Jewish home, and you're going to need them for your children. He said, I don't care if I date Jewish, marry Jewish, I won't ever need them. And I said, I'll take them on one condition. I hold them on the shelf for you. And when you need them, I'll mail them back to you. And just about 3 months ago, the way I found out his wife is expecting is he said, hey, Manya, I'm going to need those books back. Because he established a beautiful Jewish home when he didn't know he could. So the power of just having an environment that's rich with books that tell our story, that we can look into to find inspiration and clarity, it's a gift. So get yourself a Jewish book. And as a matter of fact, in Chabad, we have a day on the Chabad calendar. It's all about Jewish books. It just happened a few weeks ago. My girls were actually in overnight camp when it happened. And the first thing they came back and they said, we need to honor our library books, our Jewish books from our thing. And you know what? They pay for it themselves with their own Hanukkah geld because they want the library and their Jewish books to be theirs. And they said, we're not going to do storybooks. We want something that's a little more learning involved. And that's when we focus on it. So with intentionality, let's build Jewish libraries. It's one book at a time. Start with the Siddur, start with the Chumash. You won't mind. You never know when when that one book can change the trajectory of your life. But one thing is for sure, if it's Torah, it won't take you in the wrong direction. Okay? Any questions before we go on to the, okay, because I think it's a little more clear cut. Okay, so I'm gonna try to do this. We got this, ladies. Next one is about a Jewish vibe and Jewish friends. And I think that this one can seem really, I don't know, racist, closed-minded. What's the deal? Why is that important to me as a Jew? It can seem that way. Like, really? You're really getting up there and telling me I should make sure to have Jewish friends? Like, my Christian friends not good, my Muslim friends? What kind of closed-minded Rebbitzin are you? Okay? Here's what I want to say. The bottom line is the people around us affect us. The people we surround ourselves with should either nurture and nourish us that we can grow in who we are, feel comfortable in our skin, and be strengthened for our identity and who we are as young Jews. And if you're hanging out with a group of people, I was speaking to one of the high schoolers local. She's the only Jewish high schooler in her entire school. And she says, you know how many times I've heard Nazi Hitler jokes? I feel sorry for her that she doesn't have Jewish friends, because I guarantee you her Jewish friends are not going to be saying that. Now, obviously, the kids who are saying that are probably not either real friends. And it doesn't mean you should exclude yourself and not have friends with people. But there's a value to having friends that are like-minded, that get you, that understand what gefilte fish and either love it or don't love it, right? That understand our weird Jewish things like Jewish mothers with Jewish guilt, or whatever our holidays are, or that special feeling you have when it's Yom Kippur, you're not sure, should you fast, should you not fast, right? The people who kind of get the journey and get where you're going through in life. And I think that a space like this, that gives us the opportunity to meet like-minded, curious people, because I think that there's a misconception we have. I think the misconception is whether it's our squad or whether it's our how many people we have streaks with on Instagram, or no, sorry, Snapchat. Whoa, guys, you could tell I do not. So the person who oh, that's a really nice offer. We have some more people willing to be Jewish friends at the bottom. I think that what's so important is when we meet with like-minded people, it affects us in a powerful way. And we can also affect others by sharing our ideas and who we are. And yes, while I do think it's important to open dialogue and keep in touch with people, whoever it is, I think that when you have one or two Jewish girls that are in your life that can really influence and affect you, and you can grow together, you're growing in the same direction. So when you're saying, I really want to dabble with kosher, and maybe on Tuesdays, I'm going to skip the cheeseburger and just grab a salad. Well, you're going to say that to someone else. They're going to, what's wrong with you? Like, have you lost? Well, if you say it to a Jewish person, they may understand. And so I do think that we can check in with ourselves, and it's beyond whether they support Israel, don't support Israel. It's beyond all the political or typical social structure things, but it's people who we can know on a soul level that there's a growth and a commonality. Because really, as Jews, we're fascinating. We do a really good job uniting when someone else is out to get us. Okay? When there's an incident on a campus, suddenly all the Jews band together. Meanwhile, a week before, I won't go into that service, to that synagogue, too religious, not religious enough, right? We got all these, I always just say with Jews, someone is a little more religious is a fanatic, a little less religious is a heretic, just where I am, who I am, what. No. Let's open our minds. Let's grow. Let's meet like-minded people, because you have a mission in this world to bring light, to be ambassadors of light, to be ambassadors of morality, to the obligation for tikkun olam, to repair the world. And that's not just through a car wash or a protest. That's through lighting a Shabbos candle. That's through choosing a kosher lunch. Yes, tikkun olam means saying no to the lobster, believe it or not. So when we find people who we can strengthen each other, and I tell you, some of the best resolutions that I was able to make as a young teenager and grow from were not resolutions I made on my own, that I'm going to grow in this area of my Judaism. When me and my friend said, you know what, this is something we're going to do together, because there's a power in sisterhood. There's a power in friendship. There's a power in a common bond of our crazy rich history and our holidays that are all surrounded by wonderful culinary delights. And you don't have to justify or explain you anything. You just you. And you know what? You can be comfortable in your skin. You can grow. You can feel proud. And there's nothing wrong. It doesn't mean you're not nice to other people. But a Jewish friend. And so it may seem interesting, and I want you to ponder this one because we can maybe explore a little bit more in a follow-up class, but I want you to put those thoughts out there. Is it me excluding, or is it me fortifying and consciously choosing who I'm surrounding myself with it? Some thoughts for the day. I know we ended up with a good one that we probably could do more time on, but hopefully we kind of planted some seeds and the wheels are in motion. And now we are all ready to not just put a mezuzah on our door and invest in a Jewish book, but to make sure we surround ourselves with strong, empowered Jewish women and develop really healthy friendships.
Amen.
I'd say l'chaim, but my class is empty.
You know, while everyone takes a stretching break, if you could have if anyone has a question that's like a 30-second or 45-second question, you can ask it.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, make sure that everyone else like do some stretching, because just sitting the whole time's not good. So, you know, move around a little bit. We're gonna need to get the oxygen flowing back into our muscles.
Manya, so I do have, I think it's a relatively quick question.
Go for it.
It goes back to the mezuzah. So I really want a mezuzah on my door. I spoke to my mother about it. She was all for it, which was actually really amazing. And she actually bought one for my door and one for hers, right? When they came, this was all online, like, you know, because the Judaica shops around here aren't open right now. So when they came, I started looking into like kosher scrolls and stuff. And I looked at the scrolls. I'm like, I'm pretty sure these are just paper and this is printed. Like, this isn't it. So now we have these beautiful cases, but we still do not have the mezuzahs on the door. So I'm just wondering, like, oh, and this is the caveat of the whole thing. So I started looking online for some, you know, parchment scrolls, and they're incredibly expensive and I cannot afford them. So
No, that's a really good question. There actually are like mezuzah banks. I mean, we actually have a mezuzah bank that our students can like get a mezuzah for really, really reasonable, and they're subsidized. It's not because they're don't cost a lot, because it's written by a scribe, letter by letter, with ink and parchment. It's quite a detailed process, right? It's not just photocopied. And so a real mezuzah should cost, because it's written. I mean, if you've ever, you may not have seen a scribe work, but it's cool to watch even online a little, maybe a YouTube of how a scribe works and writes his mezuzah. So it makes sense that it's expensive. I would definitely say try to contact your local, I don't know who's your local rabbi or Chabad rabbi or Rebbitzin. Contact them and say, like, we have these scrolls, are there, and do you have any access to any subsidized mezuzah scrolls? But we got to get a mezuzah on it. Got to get a mezuzah on your door.
And get in touch with us if you still need help.
There you go. See that? There's always solutions over here.
Thank you so much, Manya.
You're so welcome, lovely ladies. Enjoy the rest of your incredible day, and I may be seeing you later tonight.
You fit such huge topics into such small amounts of spaces. Really,
I think there was
God's miracles on earth.
I think there was a lot more to cover, but we tried to pull some really key takeaways. Amazing. Take care, guys.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. It's great seeing you guys, you ladies.